or later you're gonna be mine. Sooner or later you're gonna be fine. Baby, it's time that you faced it. I always get my man. Sooner or later you're...
So we look forward to hearing your feedback. Any questions you have, anything you don't understand, it's okay. I think during the debrief session we'll have some questions time, but ask those questions because that's what really helps us get better. So again, we are happy that you brought some of this sunshine to Rhode Island, and I'm going to introduce Dennis.
The time here is to think about innovation, think about yourself, think about going home and what you're going to do when you go home. And the main thing we try to do is light a fire under our kids. Okay? If you're excited about learning, then you're going to learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to put my hand like that and go like that. There we go. You inspired now? All right, very good. I'll be on the edge. This right here, it's not that I'm carrying my toy around, but we sit a lot. I sit a lot now that I have a lot of meetings. Sitting is not good for you. It closes down your whole body. Kids sit way more than they should sit. So there's a man in Rhode Island that has created, this is a chair. And you'll see when you go to the Entrepreneur Center. So the idea for this is you sit like this so that your whole core is working. So it's not you're sitting like this and nothing working and your body goes down. So your legs are working, your core is working, and you're sitting at the same time. Because standing isn't even that good for you after a while. So I'm just showing you a little innovation because that's what you're here for, and that's what we're here for, to constantly look and say, what can we do better? And what do you see here? And they went inside here as a 9th grader. It's kind of like Michelangelo would look and see a granite, and you see the figure, you see David inside it. And he'd go, I want that piece of granite, and I'll carve away. So in the same way that I lit the fire, our job is to find the kid and then start chipping away. Where most people say, okay, I got to give you a little history, little this, little that. But we start with the kid. So imagine.
Dutch at your table. So I want you to talk about, just for a few minutes, an experience that you had in New York, New Amsterdam, where you learned something. Providence is not New York. New York was really settled by the Dutch and has a Dutch influence. Providence was settled by the English. Very, very different culture. So you'll feel that a little bit if you're attuned to it. But talk at your tables about one experience that you had that you learned something. Just everybody do that. Go around the table, okay? 2-3 minutes. Come to school, and when they're 5 years old, they think they can do everything. They're very, very engaged. And as they go through school, they get less and less engaged in school and start thinking that they're not scientists, artists, musicians, all that. And yet, we keep on doing the same thing, except in very few places like our place, where engagement is a big word and it's taken very, very seriously. Everybody's different, just like all the interests that you have in New York, you have your own experiences, and we have to allow that to happen in school more. Yep, there's stuff that everybody's got to learn in school, and we all know that. But there's also these pieces that will help engage every student at any school if you just ask what you're interested in, and you won't stop talking. So we'll show that for a second. This is also something from the Netherlands. Anybody know what that is? Right, we got the same thing over here. How come they don't hit each other? Did you walk through Grand Central Station in New York yesterday and go to the pub? How come we can figure out how to bump into each other when we walk? Just like they can figure that out. Because there's something else going on with us. And that's a very, very important thing. You see that little hawk diving in. And he can't catch anybody because we're looking in all different ways all the time, and yet we think we don't think about it, but we actually think about it. And there's a lot of things that we think we don't think about in school that we actually think about. They're cognitive. They're not cognitive. Socially, emotionally, and with our bodies. And that's an important little piece. Everybody's moving not in a straight line, they're moving in a what? A spiral. It's non-linear. And that's how we move in the world. Nobody moves in a straight line. And yet, every one of your schools, not because you're Dutch, and not because we're Americans, everything is line by line by line, page by page by page. That's our metaphor. When we're smart enough to know this has to be our metaphor. Not only are we moving in the world, but the target that we want to get to is also moving. It keeps changing. So our pathways that you have in the Netherlands and we have in the United States and careers for young people, that's not a linear pathway. None of you have gone through life in a linear way. None of our students do. And we've made a school, and you'll see this today, that's less linear, more personalized, which does what? It engages people. It allows you to move in the world. A lot of rules here. I know you got more rules than we got, because you do well with rules. And then everybody relaxes. More than we do. We don't do well with rules, and we push people down a lot of the times. Now, that may happen in the Netherlands as well. But when there's too many restrictions on the movement, as Dennis said, we don't even allow students to stand up. If they're taking a test or an exam, if you stand up, you get thrown out. But you may think better standing up like me. And that you have a rhythm, just like those birds, you have a rhythm and a cadence to your movement and to your talking. And these things stop you from thinking. The best thinking you can do. And yet we keep doing it. Play and practice, time and timing and application and authenticity. They were the basis, the foundation for us developing our program at our school. We wanted to engage students. Dennis and I and a whole team of educators and people from the community came up with that. And we said, school has to be very, very different. So we made a new type of school that has real authentic assessments out in the world after school, and it has a learning plan for every student, an advisory system where you're known well inside and outside of school, ways to get to career and technical schools and colleges, family engagement where everybody's family comes in for the learning plan meetings, which you'll see all this, so your families are involved. So those pieces of our expectations that engage students created a program of a new type of school that all entwines together.
It's fantastic to get to be a part of your visit. This is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've had a chance to visit with folks from the Netherlands. And the first time was actually, I think, 10 years ago when I was an advisor in the Unity building, which some of you will be going to visit, and had a chance to see folks coming from all countries all over the world. But in particular, I remember the folks from the Netherlands for asking the kinds of tough questions that Dennis talked about. So please continue to bring that. It's also, I'm just remember what Dennis was talking about, that student who appeared in the week article, Noam Barzemer. So I was talking to him on the phone yesterday. This was by sheer coincidence because I'm in touch with my students who graduated years ago. And I think that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on, is that we forge relationships that last over long periods of time. And just as Noam, Dennis was talking about how Noam had some difficulty in his previous schools and was sort of trying to find himself and connect. He had some really amazing experiences while he was here. He had internships with a professional photographer and thought about images and imagery and how do you capture ideas. He got really interested in politics, and he interned with the senator here from the state of Rhode Island. That got him interested in policy, and he'd always been interested in environmental issues. So he interned with an environmental packaging firm, figuring out about how multinational corporations, when they sell their iPhone in different countries, the packaging has to be different sizes and contain different components. And then he got really interested in international business and the way in which it affected the world. And so he did bring a whole group of students to Nicaragua to look at the ways in which education systems and economic systems lead to different outcomes. So he went off to college. He spent a year at Oxford learning how to really capture and dissect complex ideas. He then went on after college to intern at the White House with Michelle Obama, and then worked on Joe Biden's advance team. The vice president was flying all around the country. That connected him with Al Gore's climate initiative, and he was involved in spreading the word about an inconvenient truth. Then he left that and worked for an organization that was creating short audio documentaries about American veterans. And then most recently has been working at one of the top advertising firms in New York City called VaynerMedia. And he's basically been selling, as he puts it, Chips Ahoy, cookies, GE, and also Coca-Cola. And I talked to him yesterday because he said, you know, I wake up every day, it's an interesting, challenging problem, but I don't want to do this. I'm tired of it. I'm helping rich people make a bunch more money, and I want to get back to doing something that connects to the world, that connects to making the world a better place. So he's still thinking about who he wants to be, and I think that when we think about the experiences that you're seeing now, and I don't have the piece of wood, but it's not always a linear progression, right? We exist in a world now where people are constantly reinventing themselves and trying very new and different career possibilities. And I think that that's a lot of what you'll see. I'll also just mention that I had the chance to travel to the Netherlands as well and visit the Met in Walwick and Practicon and some of the other schools and saw really incredible stuff. So I view this really as an exchange that we've had a chance to learn from you and you're learning from us, and I think we can only continue to improve that. So I look forward to hearing about what you see over the next few days. Get in and ask those tough questions. Some of the questions that folks asked me as an advisor made me start thinking about, well, how come schools are designed that way? And I started working with the med school in Sacramento in California. You guys aren't going to California on this trip, right? But come back. We got to get you out to LA. We got to get you to Sacramento, go see some of the other schools. And then I started working on a system and trying to think about how do we spread this work across the US and internationally. So thank you for being a part of that work. Thank you for coming here and spreading those words. And I know Elliot wanted to wrap you in. I'll see you a little bit today, and then I'll see you a bunch on Wednesday. So I'm really excited to see you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So right now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. The students here who are going to take you around, Nancy and Linda are going to explain.